Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, back with another Halloween card for my 2019 Halloween series. For today's card, I am starting off with some Ranger Distress watercolor paper. I have the smooth side facing up, have it in my MISTI. I used my anti-static powder tool and my surface sweep to remove the excess powder. And then I'm stamping one of the images from the Studio Katia Spooky Pumpkins Trimmings stamp set that I showed in a recent haul video. And I'm inking the stamp up with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, stamping it onto there. Since this ink takes a little while to dry, I can clear heat emboss it. It's never necessary. I personally just do this so that, one, I don't smear it, and two, it enables me to go a little quicker when I'm coloring and whatnot, because you get those little raised edges from the embossing. So when I'm doing any sort of watercoloring or water-based coloring, like markers, whatever, I don't have to worry so much about things bleeding into each other because they're, everything's contained. So that's why I heat emboss with this ink before coloring with it, but you don't need to. So after I heat embossed it, I left this beginning portion. This is in real time, not sped up, so people can see that I am nowhere near as magically fast as I appear in videos. That's all fake. It's editing. Depending on what I'm doing, I can color quickly. Again, depending on what I'm doing, but something like this, it takes a little bit. So I'm just outlining this image. I'm using my Karin Brushmarker Pros that I'm really loving these. Any water-based like marker would work for something like this, but these are what I'm currently obsessed with. So I'm just outlining the image. I'm using this indigo blue. It's very, very dark blue. And I'm going around the very outside edge of this stamped image. The thought process behind this was I wanted the dark one because I thought it would look really nice and really make the colors pop, like the Halloween colors of the orange and whatnot. But I'm also doing this because I plan on cutting this out and I didn't want a stark white edge because of the background I'm going to create. I really wanted it kind of deeper. I was thinking sort of night sky sort of a thing. So I added the marker. I'm pulling it out a little bit with my water brush, but I'm not concerned with getting like a perfect smooth transition, where you don't see any of the outline color or like the line or anything. I'm not concerned with that. I just want that dark color down around all of the outer areas of these images so that when I trim them out as well, it gives me a little extra leeway. There's not a coordinating die for this set. Someone had asked me if there was, and there's not. Honestly, cutting it out took no time at all. But doing this also, because it's so dark and it's going to go in a dark background, it just makes things less stressful, I guess, when I do trim it out. Also because I don't want to trim right up to the edge, especially with like the little floating images. Like there's all the little candy corn pieces floating. And there's the spider legs. Like there's just a lot of parts that I'm like, I am not cutting that out. Like, no. And even if there was a coordinating die, it would, go around the outer edge and leave the same sort of a border. So for me, it's kind of a moot point. So I just went around with that marker and did the outline first. It's personal preference. You could color the whole image and then do the outline. I found since I knew I was doing such a dark outline, I wanted to do that first and then just kind of get it out of the way and not have to stress about accidentally, coloring over images I'm going to color now. So after I've done that, I'm now going to go in and color all the rest of these images with various colors. I have them all listed. I was kind of hopping back and forth with some of these colors. I did yellows for the inside of the faces, or like inside the pumpkins, thinking, of course they're all going to be lit up and glowing. And then for the little things like the candy corn, I don't use my water brush at all. I just colored the marker, area. I just touched it to those little areas with the yellows and the oranges, and I'm not going to bother even attempting to blend. They're tiny. It doesn't matter. So the pumpkins, I did 2 different colors of kind of orange. I used that amber color, which is the lighter orange, and this orange red, which is darker. And with all of them, I kind of went back and forth multiple times to really continue to add more and more color. I wanted them very intense, very bright. So that's another reason why I'm really loving these brush markers, is I'm finding I can layer them quite nicely. And I don't know. I need all the coloring options. Like, the more the merrier. There's never enough. So went along and did, as I always do, everything at once. So, I did all the little yellow parts at once, and then I did all the pumpkins at once. I find that just easier in the scheme of coloring. Something else I get asked a lot is, how long did such and such take? Most of the time, like 99% of the time, I don't pay attention to how long. Usually it doesn't take me that long. I don't have the time to really, spend hours coloring. I always love seeing other people's, finished projects though. Like some cards, they're jaw dropping, and then they'll be like, it took me, an hour and a half, 2 hours to color this. And I'm like, wow, love it. I just, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a problem with spending the time doing it. Just more often than not, I'm in some ways almost a little ADD with that. And I just find that it's like, I want to be done with this and move on. But this took me around 20-ish minutes. And I only know that because my kids got home from school. I stopped the camera and I just happened to see the time on it. Because usually I try not to pay attention to that so much. Even though I do this as a job, I try not to sit and really, worry about the time, because the whole point of all of this and why I love it so much is it's therapy. I enjoy it. So I really don't like sitting and being like, well, this took exactly 20 minutes and 3 seconds. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked as always. So after all my coloring was done, trimmed this out with my fussy cut and scissors. Like I said, went along, since I had all that outlined, it felt just nice. I just kind of cut up around the blue. That's all I did. So I didn't have to worry too much about it. This took little to no time. I included all of this cutting because it was just simple. Just went along, kind of floating around that top border images. The bottom portion of it was super, super simple. So once I got it trimmed out, I just went back in a couple little spots where I'd made little like kind of jagged cuts that I just didn't like the look of. But again, really simple, really easy. Don't have to worry about it. And if I didn't cut, really nicely in any parts, you're not really going to be able to tell when this is placed on the very dark background I'm going to create. So speaking of which, pulled up my Oxide inks to create a really fun background. And I will say the background just came together in no time at all. Oh, before I got to that, white gel pen, just went along and kind of added it just to give that little extra something, add little highlights here and there, not really paying too much attention to, where they should go. I just put them where I thought they looked the best. So I just went along with my little Jelly Roll 10. This is definitely my favorite white gel pen. This one has not let me down yet. So went along, added just, little random highlights. That little angry pumpkin, I gave him kind of angry eyebrows. Just have fun with it. Don't worry too much about it. So I did all that. I pulled out my Waffle Flower Water Media Mat. I keep telling myself I need to make more of a habit of using this, especially with things like ink blending, because the silicone it's made out of, it seems to like cling cardstock and paper and whatnot really nicely. And I really like that. And then you wipe it all up when you're done. So I have another piece of Ranger watercolor paper, again with the smooth side facing up, and I'm just blending on 4 different colors of Oxide inks. And like I said, this came together really quickly as background just because the inks, I was heavy with ink application, so I wasn't needing to concentrate on, when you try and get that really soft blend and blend out to white and everything. I was like, no, I want dark, like dark. So I started with Blueprint Sketch. That was my main, because I wanted that blue. And then I added in some Wilted Violet. And then I'm going to go in with some Chipped Sapphire here just to kind of deepen that up into the blue again. And then I'm going to add a little bit of Black Soot. And I just kind of go back and forth with a couple of the colors just to, intensify, blend it, and it was done. Like this took literally less than 5 minutes, I think. No time at all. So I've got my nice, like deep background. And of course you got to add splatter to it, because not only because I love the splatter, but because when you're dealing with distress oxides or distress inks, either one, because they're water reactive, like adding the splatter is what really brings these inks to life. So I have my little mini mister bottle here that has Perfect Pearl powder in it and water. So I'm just shaking it up really well to reactivate, because all the powder just settles to the bottom. So shaking it really, really well, and then doing the same thing like I do with like Oxide sprays and whatnot. I just take the nozzle off and use that to flick this all over the background. And at first it doesn't look like anything. Like it just kind of looks and I'm also splattering it on the colored pumpkins because I thought that would be cute too for some shimmer splatter. But this, when it dries and then you can really see the shimmer, that's when it is so pretty. So pretty. So like right now it just kind of looks a little boring. It's not very intense. Meh. You'll see as I turn it into the light when I'm drawing it with my heat tool, it just, all the shimmer starts to show up more and it's just so pretty. Like right now it still doesn't look like anything special, but I wanted to dry this because of course I'm going to add other splatter to this. So I just pulled out my heat tool just to speed up the drying process. And also the heat tool is nice because the Oxide inks are probably most likely they're still wet, like they're not fully dry either. So as I tend to pick up ink all over, especially doing backgrounds like this, I end up getting like purple and blue and black ink all over the place. Like I find it in the most random spaces. Anyway, dried everything with my heat tool. Now you can start seeing like that shimmer. It's almost like magical how as it dries, it just gets prettier, like so much prettier. So I've got that. You could leave it here, but I always need more. So I just wanted to add a little bit more splatter. So I pulled out my Picket Fence Distress paint, shook that up as well, applied a bit to an acrylic block, and then I'm just using a paintbrush to splatter this all over like heavily. I ended up actually doing this twice just to really get a lot of the splatter. And this paint will pick up because there's so much ink in the background. The paint will absorb some of that ink and it doesn't stay white. I'm okay with this. I just wanted, kind of more of the splatter effect and just the way it looks. I wasn't concerned with it, staying perfectly pure white. So splatter that background, let it completely dry. In fact, I think I ended up letting it dry overnight because I was like busy with the kids and different things. So let it completely dry. And then I'm going to run this through my die cut machine with one of the Halloween Trimmings wafer dies from Studio Katia. I wasn't sure at first which one I was going to use, but I ended up settling on the Trick or Treat wafer die. And I love how they're conformed with this stamp set. Like they're just meant to go together. It's perfect. So I ran that through my die cut machine and then just popped out the little pieces there. And I just love it. I love how this looks. It's so fun. So popped out the little pieces with my little Tim Holtz craft pick here. So you can see that sentiment. And then after I had done that die cutting, all I'm going to do is assemble my card base, which is black cardstock, cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. So it'll be standard A2 sized card. And the background is going to completely cover it. I decided not to trim it down like I usually do, to give a little bit of a frame of the card base. I just wanted to leave it as is. But I wanted the sentiment to stand out a little bit more because on the black with such a dark background, it wasn't as showy as I wanted. So I pulled out some of Simon Says Stamps glitter cardstock. Someone left a comment on my social media, but I'm not sure where. I just remember seeing it. I think it was like popped up on my phone, but I don't remember where it went. Someone was asking me what my favorite glitter cardstock is, and Simon's and Tonics are my favorites. They're great. They're amazing. They don't shed, because that was in the question, like what one like doesn't shed. These ones don't. And you can die cut them. I have die cut them with some of the finest, most intricate dies. There's my little commercial plug for Simon's glitter cardstock or Tonic's glitter cardstock. I have both in, I think, all the colors and love them. So I just used silver for this one. Trimmed it down, adhered it with craft tacky glue. So it just, makes that sentiment kind of pop. And then I'm going to adhere this to my card base with that same craft tacky glue. Just going along and applying that. And then I can pop that onto my card front. Once this is adhered into place, I covered the back of the pumpkin piece with Simon's Big Mama foam tape, just to give it that little extra bit of dimension. So cover that with the foam tape, pop that into place. And then for the inside of the card, this is why I chose the black card base specifically, because right now it doesn't matter. Like you can't see the card base, it's irrelevant. So I could have done white, but I purposely wanted to do black because I used the Happy Halloween die cut from the Halloween Trimmings on a piece of white cardstock that I cut slightly smaller than the card base. And then I decided I was going to stamp the second stamp from the Spooky Pumpkins trimming set because I really liked that one, but didn't get a chance to use it on the front, but I wanted to use it anyway, so I decided I would just stamp it on the inside. So this one is lined up more where it has the flat on the top, so it's kind of meant for like the top of the card. So just, again, went perfectly. So I lined that up with the top of this piece of cardstock, and then I inked it up with, this is Wendy Vecchi Tiger Lily ink. Also showed that in my last haul video. So perfect Halloween orange, you know. So stamp that, and then I can adhere this to the inside of the card, and just love how it just all kind of ties together. So yeah, this card just was perfect. I love how everything just, the colors work, the stamps, the dies, you know, sometimes everything just works so well and it just makes me happy. Anyway, did all that. And then as a final bit of embellishment, these are the Studio Katia Ripe Persimmon pearls that I was raving about in that same haul video. They're so pretty. So I put a bunch of them onto this card. Another question I got, I did answer it already, but I answered it in the comments, was what do I do when I mail cards like this that have these big pearl embellishments? I usually will just add another piece of cardstock, like just a floating piece of cardstock, same size as the card. I'll slip that in between the card and the envelope, and I've never had a problem. So that's my card for today. As always, there'll be a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list. I'll link to everything I used, so you can check that out if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye!